Welcome to tonight's Shir. What's Shabbos Vayera? Anticipate we'll have a few less participants tonight because of the Shiva of the late Paivish Vogel Olav Shalom. Some of our regulars are there, and so we discussed in the previous weeks about the shape of a tal's, the opening, the neck hole for a tal's cotton. So I want to share with you something which is not going to directly impact that, but it is related to this. About 10 years ago, I met Reb Gedalia Korf, Olav Shalom, and he told me the following, the following which I'm going to share with you, and he felt guilty that he hadn't made more of a fuss about it. And what you have on the screen is what I wrote down at the time, and Be'ez Hashem, in the new edition of the Siddur, this will be in the addendum. It will be addenda. It'll be number, I think, Simon, Tess or something. So he told me the following. It was several months after the Frierdiker Rebbe had passed away. This is in Tafshin Yud, in 1950. And the Rebbe called him and my uncle David Raskin. They were of the very few of the Russian refugees who had managed to get to New York before the passing of the Frierdiker Rebbe. There's only 4 or 6, Shalom Arozov and etc. I don't remember exactly who else, but there was. So he called in those 2 Talmidim. They were Bochrim, and the Rebbe was standing by his table. And on his table in his room was laid out the Tal's cotton of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Rebbe took a ruler, centimeter he calls it, perhaps a tape measure, and now in our presence, he measured the Frierdiker Rebbe's Tal's cotton. And he showed how the width of the Tal's cotton was 63 centimeter. To say that the Rebbe, as in the Frierdiker Rebbe, did not rely on the smaller shear of Reb Chaim Noah, who says an amma is 49 centimeters, and for himself he was machmir to have a width of 63 centimeters, a fair bit bigger. The Rebbe then measured the length of the garment, and he showed us how it has twice 63 centimeters. This overall length included the opening for the neck. He then measured from the bottom of the front lower end until the neck hole, and that was 49.
If he would not hold back, therefore Hashem.
So he measured again from the bottom till the neck, and that was 49 centimeters. So and so the way he's explaining this, there's a discussion in Poskim, does the neck hole is it included in the shear or not? And so the overall measurements was the largest shear, 63 times 2 is 126. But as far as the measurement from the front till the neck hole, he relied on the smallest shear of 49 centimeters. This doesn't address whether the hole is round or T-shaped. He doesn't go into that detail. I hope to meet a talus cotton manufacturer in the coming week, and to discuss whether we could do something about making the talus cotton for Chabad should be able to close closer to the neck, as we discussed previous weeks. That's how the Alter Rebbe describes in the Siddur. Let's go on to something totally different, and that is that I got a request from someone's in a different continent altogether, but someone's traveling to Tromsø. If you want to know where Tromsø is, you can see on the screen. It's near the north of Norway, just to help you get your bearings. So there you can see in the second map, you can see, so Norway is the one which is facing the North Sea, and the town Tromsø is that much higher, further north than the Arctic circles, no, much further north than Reykjavik. It's 69 degrees north of the equator. The persons decided to visit there during Kislev. Now, at that time, there is no daylight in Tromsø. So, but there are other interesting things, Northern Lights. So they decided to go there, and, there's no daylight. So what do you do about working out for Shabbos? What do you do about tefillin, shachris, etc.? Just to add an interesting point, that my Google search tells me that Tromsø is surrounded by mountains. What that means is, in addition to it being so far north of the Arctic Circle, and that causes it to be dark, but even if there would be a stickle bit of light, it's going to be also compromised because of the mountains surrounding it. There is a place called Palm Springs in California, I believe, and it's at the foot of a mountain range. It gets dark there half an hour before sunset because there's the mountains stop. But if you get on a bike, go down the road 15 minutes, it gets light again. So interesting. Right. So I've once discussed that about working out for Shabbos there. It seems to be strange to be it's really dark to say it's not Shabbos yet. Okay. But let's keep to our point. How do we work for Shabbos in a place which it doesn't get there's no daylight at all? And the same thing would be the other way around. In summer, there's going to be the fun and games with the midnight sun. So it's going to be the same type of question. When does the date switch? And also, what do you do for things like Krishma Shal Arvis, etc.? So let's go back to our screen. We've got here then a letter of the Rebbe. Now, this letter is written, it's in Igros Kodesh Chelik base, it's the early years, it's not before the Nasias. It's a letter to Rebbe Avram Hechtel Shalom, and it's one of a list of questions. And he'd asked about what do you do in a place where daylight or night stretches for more than 24 hours. The Rebbe points to a Zohar, which says there are places where it's just day and there's no light at all besides a tiny bit. And so this concept is mentioned in the Zohar in passing. And the question, what do you do about Shabbos? Does it go according to the amount of hours, or do you go according to another place, or according to the sunset? And the Rebbe says, I don't understand what you're asking. How could you work according to the sunset when it's not going to shine for the next? It could be next few days or next few months, and etc. So that doesn't make sense to follow sunrise and sunset. And to say that a day should last for a month, that doesn't make sense. To say that you're going to follow the timing of another place, well, which other place? How are you going? Are you going to choose which place? What's the logic of that? And therefore, in the fourth paragraph, the fifth paragraph, the Rebbe writes, of course, in these places, you're going to have to work on a 24-hour basis. Where does Shabbos start? Now, the next line, perhaps I don't understand the Hebrew well enough. I don't fully understand. He says the beginning of Shabbos is the same in all places which have the same longitude. And then he says, "Hanimtsoim ba'oifek echod." I'm not sure what he means by those words, ba'oifek echod. But I'm going to take the liberty of saying the way I understand. Take a look at this place called Tromsø. Yeah, well, I've got the arrow there. Now, I I worked out also it's how do you say if it's the longitude, also the latitude, how far it is from Greenwich. So Greenwich is London's over here, so that's Greenwich. And now I worked out that Chatzos there will be 11:44. Now, just to explain what I think what the Rebbe is saying here. Now, let's say Tromsø is the same as not the same latitude, but the same longitude as Berlin, same as Prague, same as Zagreb, etc. So it's the same line. So it's true that in Prague, there's going to be a longer day in the winter, and you go to Berlin, it's going to be shorter, and you go to Oslo, it's going to be shorter. Yes, but the shorter is going to be symmetrical. The night is going to go longer in the morning, and the night is going to start earlier in the evening. So Chatzois midday is going to be the same. So midday in Tromsø and midday in Prague, for argument's sake, is going to be the same time. So although I don't see a sunset, I don't see a sunrise, but I can still, by knowing the longitude, I will say, listen, this is the moment of Chatzos. This is a midday. As I said, I worked it out is 11:44, and therefore, when it's dark the whole time, I'd say the Friday finishes at 11:44 and Shabbos begins at 11:44. That's going to be the Chatzos of that place is going to be the marker between one date and the next. Of course, we're going to take a precaution a little bit more time, such as to light candles, let's say 11:30 or a quarter past 11, however, to be machmir, and then Motzei Shabbos, wait till 12 o'clock or something. They'll give a margin of error to be machmir on both sides a little bit, but basically that's your guideline. That helps for Shabbos. Now the same, what would happen in the summer would use midnight as being the switch over from one day to the next. And so if in Stockholm, Motzei Shabbos is going to be 11:30, let's say, so Tromsø will be 11:44, let's say. That's going to be the latest. It's going to be go to midnight. And then after that is going to be beginning of Sunday. That helps us for switching the date. What do you do about tefillin? So it's not mamish pitch black in this place in Tromsø, and at 11ish, it's not mamish pitch black. There is like a little bit of twilight, in which case you'll daven shacharis in that twilight time, and the same thing would be for mincha. Although lechatchila we daven mincha before the shkia, but that place doesn't have a shkia, but you will have a bein hashmoshes. You'll have a little bit of daylight. And so in that period, that's when you'd daven mincha, you'd daven shachris before chatzos, and daven mincha after the local chatzos. Okay, let's move on. So here I got a question that someone had made not a pledge, but he'd declared, I'm going to give $12,000 to this show. And then as they got into a broigus, and so now he says, I'm not going to give money to that show. No way. Okay. So now what happens? So he made a declaration. He's going to give $12,000. I must share with you something even more ridiculous. A guy came to me about 2 weeks ago, and he said over Yom Tov, he bought aliyahs in a certain show, and he gave the money to a different show. He was because he had something, wanted to spite them because they didn't treat him nicely. So he says, did I do anything wrong? So I says, well, that's crooked. It's like you went into in Sainsbury's, you took some food and you paid boots. Well, the shul are selling their aliyahs, and that's the way they have an income to cover their costs. You go and buy an aliyah here and you pay it, and this is ridiculous. All right, but here this fellow did not buy anything. He just had made a statement. He's going to give $12,000, and now he is not so keen about it. So what can you do? So there's two issues here. One is the commitment to this shul, and the other one is the commitment to give tzedakah b'chlal. So here we have this from this specialist sefer on nedarim, on vows. So he writes, if you made a vow to give tzedakah to a particular poor person, some poskim say you do have the prerogative to give it to a different person. So you've got a mitzvah tzedakah. There's two issues here. One is ben odom l'chaveirei, and one is that you made a commitment to give tzedakah. So some poskim say you are allowed to change to a different beneficiary. Some say no, you have to give it to the same, to the only to whom you, to the poor person to whom you had committed to give. But then he goes further. He says, if you dafka want to change, then there are some poskim say you could do hatoras nedarim. So back to this case, he made a declaration. Going to give $12,000 to this shul. He could do hatoras nedarim, but he should still respect, honor his word of giving that donation, but to a different shul. I don't know who it is, so don't ask me for his name and address. Okay, let's move on. Right. So now, this is question number 4. So now, someone asked me recently, when you wash Negelwasser, is it imperative that your hands are totally dry? And my answer was that if you're going to say a brocha on that natila, it is imperative that they should be dry. If it's not got to do with a brocha, we only say a brocha on natilas yadayim besides for food, yeah, but only in the morning. So other times you wash negelwasser. So if the hands are not totally dry, it's nicht gefährlich. Meanwhile, I saw something which I was very surprised, and we know that in Likutei Diburim, the Frierdiker Rebbe says there are 3 differences between natilas yadayim for a meal and natilas yadayim in the morning. One is that in the morning, that's what you have here, the quote from Sefer HaMinhagim. In the morning, natilas yadayim is said once the hands are dried, whereas natilas yadayim for a meal, we make the bracha before drying. The second point is that the hands are raised in the morning. We raise them to the level of the payas, whereas by natilas yadayim kept lower down, as far as I remember. And the third one is that in the morning we make the bracha with the hands apart, vananda gishbreit, whereas when natilas yadayim nesuda, we have the hands held together, rubbing your hands with one another, etc. So, meanwhile, here's very clear that our minhag is the bracha natilas yadayim in the morning is after you've dried your hands. So I didn't realize until looking around that there's a whole debate about this. So in the Bayer Heitev, in Siman Dalet, so he brings 2 opinions, and this is the Sharet Shuvah, which is on the same page as the Bayer Heitev, and he quotes the Machzik Bracha from the Chidah, who quotes the Or Tzadikrim from Reb Meir Paphras, who quotes Aram Nigrin, that the Ruach Ra, the evil spirit, which is why we wash Negelvas in the first place, that doesn't completely get out of your way until you've dried your hands. And therefore, you should only say your bracha once you've dried the hands, because by then you've gotten rid of the Ruach Ra. Unlike what's written, quoting for the Sefer Seder Hayoim, in quarter in the Knesset Haggadah. So you're seeing here there's 2 opinions whether the drying of the hand, the bracha of natilas yadayim in the morning is before drying, after drying. The Chidah is taking the view, that's what we're following, to say the bracha after drying. In the Piskei Teshuvos that I've mentioned so many times, he, in his text, the main text, he says to make the bracha before drying. And he quotes Mishnah Brura and Kaf HaChaim, etc. Now let's just understand what's going on here. Why is it by natilas yadayim for a meal, why there you say the bracha before drying your hands? So there is a klal that a birchas mitzvahs, a bracha on a mitzvah, should be oivel asayoson prior to the act. My Shver Alav Shalom would say, Rabbi Sudak, he would say, machshava dibur ma'aseh. You think about what you're going to do, then you say the bracha, then you do the act. So that's the sequence. And then so the Gemara talks about birchas mitzvahs oivel asayoson. When it comes to Netilas Yadayim, it's one of the exceptions to this rule, as is another exception is the Hadlokas Neis for Shabbos, according to Ashkenazim. Tevila, again, by Ashkenazim, the Sfardim say the bracha before Tevila and before benching licht. Okay, but by Ashkenazim, those are a few exceptions. Why is Netilas Yadayim an exception? If you've just scratched your head, you've just touched your shoes, etc., you can't make a bracha until you've washed your hands. So it doesn't make sense to say the bracha before washing your hands because your hands are still impure. Therefore, you wash your hands and then you say the bracha. Okay, I understand that. But then in order to gain the benefit that you are saying it before the act, so the drying of the hands is seen as part of the shleimus of the mitzvah of Netilas Yadayim. And therefore we say the bracha before drying the hands, so that you've gained oivel asiyos, and the bracha is before the act is completed. Why is drying the hands important for Netilas Yadayim? So it says a Gemara, Kol ha'oichel lechem v'lo nigiv yadayim, ki lo oichel lechem tomei. Shenemar al kein yechlu b'nei Yisrael's lachmom tomei. There's a pasuk in Yechezkel of eating lachmom tomei. And lachmom, so Meforshim say lachmom can be read lachmayim. That if your hands are wet and you eat your bread with wet hands, is tomei. Okay. And some Meforshim go further and say it's more a derech eretz, it's more an etiquette thing. Bread is a dry food. To take wet hands and pick up a piece of bread, which making it soggy, is inappropriate. It's crude, whatever word you want to use. So therefore, there's an emphasis, Dafka, that you should dry your hands before having your bread. If drying your hands is kind of important for the bread, for eating the bread, so then your Netilas Yadayim, which is enabling you to eat the bread, is not finished until you dried your hands. Okay, so that's why when we wash for bread, we say the bracha before drying. In that way, we've gained oivel asiyos. Clear. Comes along in the morning. Why do you have to dry your hands? What for? What need is there to dry your hands? Well, in other words, what do you gain by making the bracha before drying? The drying, there's no mitzvah to dry your hands. What would happen if you just pretend to be a helicopter and your hands dry out? So what? There's no. So therefore, what do you gain by making the bracha before drying your hands? It's not oivel asiyos in any case. And if you're going to tell me, yeah, that there is still a residue of ruach hatumah, and therefore you want to make the bracha before wiping your hands, so that you're making a bracha before wiping away the last residue of tumah. So then you're saying there's still a residue of tumah. That's the very reason why I'm leaving the bracha for afterwards. If you say that there's a need, you can say like wiping your hands is the shleimus of getting rid of the tumah. Well, for that very reason, you want to say the bracha once the tumah is completely gone. That's that. Akalponim. This is the way I understand the our minhag. I have not seen anyone who explains why they say make the bracha before drying. Is it just because it should be as close as possible? Could be. What I did see, he quotes here from the Tanzarov and others, the Chafach Chaim, that he says wash 4 times. And that way you get rid of the Ruach HaTumah by the 4th pour. Okay, that's interesting. And the Gro also says this, by the way. But in our minhagim it says we wash 3 times. And also Frierdiker Rebbe confirms we wash 3 times, not 4 times. Okay. One last comment is that he quotes here from Yabia Omer, from Rabbi Avadia, who quotes the Rambam in Shuvas Peradoir, that if you make the bracha afterwards, it's a bracha levatala. No, I was suspicious. I didn't look up all his references. I did look up the Rambam in Peradoir. The Rambam talks about like this. In many shuls, you come to shul and they start making brachas. Yeah? And I was in a different shul this morning. And then they went to Hatshloyes Anigoi with the list of brachas. So in some shuls, they start off they were starting off with saying, Asher Kishon Mitzvah V'Son Al Tis Yadayim. Says the Rambam, it's a bracha levatala. You come, you wash your hands at home, you come to shul, and now you're saying a bracha al Tis Yadayim. So the Rambam says it's a bracha levatala. So others disagree, by the way. But even then, I don't see how you can say, since the Rambam says making a bracha al Tis Yadayim in shul is a bracha levatala, therefore making a bracha right after you wash your hands and wipe them is a bracha levatala. I don't see you want to say it's a miss as good as a mile. It's not. The here is you're still mamish, just almost techte dibur. You just finished the act, so the bracha is clearly associated with the act. Mashenkin there, when you're gone to shul, there's no connection there. Okay. Someone is saying that the word oifek in modern Hebrew means horizon. I'm going to go back to that slide. I know that's the word of, but what does it mean here? The same longitude and the same horizon. I didn't get the technical, what it means, the same horizon. Does it mean Berlin and Tromsø have the same horizon? I'm not sure what that means. Okay, never mind. Our meaning is so about washing Negelwasser again downstairs, or if you live in another, you wash again, and that's what he does. He also mentions that possibly that the wash, since we wash twice, so the ruach ro has been gotten rid of by the Negelwasser next to the bed, and so therefore the second washing there's less of an union of ruach ro. Yeah, good. That's one of the tainas she has. And still, you see what Minhag Chabad is. We're going to still somehow wait until we wiped our hands. Bichlal, this whole thing of washing a second time, and then you make a bracha. Is the bracha on the first washing or on the second washing? So my understanding is the following. I know it's others will disagree. My understanding is the following. You made you washed the Negelwasser next to your bed. That's the main Natil Shaddai. But then to make a bracha, then you still need to use the bathroom, you need to touch this, touch that. So you wait until you get dressed. So you've when you washed next to your bed, you achieved a state of purity. But then you knew you're going to kind of step back from the state of purity, and then you're going to restore it. So the way I understand is when you wash the second time, you're kind of restore. It's like you've gone out of the room for a minute. You're restoring the state of purity which you achieved by next to your bed, but the mitzvah is the one which you of Netilas Yadayim is the one next to the bed. Okay, another separate pillful. Okay, let's move on. So a Hanukkah question. What you see on the screen is a chafing dish fuel, and I'm not sure whether they call that in America as chafing dish. They call them sternos, I think. At any rate, it's especially for those who are just listening audio, it's like a tub which has like a kind of solid paraffin cream, and you set it alight, and then it keeps food warm for several hours. So it emits a flame, but it doesn't have a wick. So someone, a shliach, is asking, could he use these for the menorah? So one of the earliest poskim who deal with electricity, is it called fire or not, is the Beis Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak Shmelkish, who I believe was in the town of Lodz. You can see the date there, Tofresh Nun Gimel, it means more than 130 years ago. So he was asked, are you Yotze Ner Chanukah with a tub of oil without a wick? So he says that he has this kind of a tube which the flame somehow is at the top of the tube, but there's not a wick as such. And he says, Ladaiti, in his opinion, you are Yotze because it's not imperative, Dumya de Menorah. It's not imperative that the Ner Chanukah should be mamish the same as the Menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, because he gives an example that, Kovso, by Ner Chanukah, Kovso ein Zokah, if it goes out, you don't have to rekindle it. And with a Menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, you would have to. But Kitzer, though, he takes the view that it does not have to be mamish identical. So whilst electric lights certainly the poskim say you cannot be Yotze Ner Chanukah with electric lights, and they give various rationale. But when it comes to with a paraffin, you got his opinion that it is okay. So, yesh lismech al zeh. Right, let's go on. So here, a family last Shabbos, they apparently did not have a fleshika chant, and they had for challah, they had a challah which had been warmed up in a fleshika oven. And 4 hours later, 5 hours later, it's already Motzei Shabbos, and kids want to have pizza. Do you have to wait 6 hours after a challah which was warmed up in a fleshika oven? That is the question. So look, this is from you have on the screen is from the Sefer Psokim with Shuvas. The reason why do we have this business of waiting 6 hours? So there's two issues here. One is because of the lingering taste. Let me explain something. Min HaTorah, there is no issur of if you would even if to have a sandwich with a slice of cheese and a slice of salt beef and you ate them together, there's no issur min HaTorah there because it says lo sevashel. If so long as they're not cooked together, there's no issur min HaTorah. But there is a concern that we shouldn't have Rabbanon minig, whatever, it's a minig which is in the Gemara, not to have the two tastes of cheese and meat together. Not that there's any Averim in a Torah, but that's a minig Yisrael to avoid having those two tastes together. So there's a Gemara in Chulin where this one says, I, in comparison to my father, I'm like vinegar, the son of wine. Because my father, if he ate meat today, he wouldn't eat cheese until tomorrow, and I wait from one meal to the next. And that's the basis of the waiting 6 hours, etc. Where the Rambam learns from meal to meal 6 hours. And that's the whole waiting is so one of the main reasons is that there should not be the lingering taste that you shouldn't. Another aspect of it is that sometimes when you eat something which is has a certain crumbly nature or whatever, can get stuck between the teeth. So sometimes you might have a bit of meat stuck between your teeth. So how long does the meat between your teeth still remain potent? There's got a meat taste. Because after all, you've got food acids, digestive acids in your mouth, and they'll break it down. So when 6 hours have passed, the understanding is that the digestive acids have ruined any fleshika taste, and it doesn't taste like meat anymore. These are the two reasons. So, but keeping to the first reason, the Indian of the lingering taste. So the argument here is that yes, you've got a parava. Let's read what he has here. A parava food, which picked up vapor from meat. It was cooked together with meat, and so he says you do not have to wait 6 hours afterwards, and you can have after that you can have so not together with it, but afterwards you can have milchik afterwards. The argument is that yes, there may be a slight meaty taste, but it doesn't linger. And then he says, if you're machmir, to rinse your mouth in between, tova yolav bracha. But you don't have to wait. So that was really the answer, that the challah baked, warmed up, yeah, in a fleshika oven, you do not have to wait 6 hours. Now, someone asked me, and meanwhile, I was on some WhatsApp group, and this came up. This is a Sefer Reishis Darka. I'm not familiar with the Sefer. It's obviously contemporary, and it's on Siman Peites. That's the Siman Yerodei, which talks about waiting between meat and milk, etc. So he has here, I'm going to just read it. If you cooked a dover charif, a sharp food, in a fleshika pot, or you cut it with a fleshika knife, yeah, so you've got an onion which was cooked in a fleshika pan, or it was cut with a fleshika knife. That onion becomes fleshik, yeah, but you don't have to wait 6 hours. So you're not allowed to have that onion with milk, but you don't have to have it, having eaten the onion which was cut with a fleshika knife, you don't have to wait 6 hours. Then he says very interesting. If you had cooked a dover charif in a milchike pan, or you cut the dover charif with a milchaka knife, some say you should not eat it within 6 hours after meat, which is like interesting. Is somehow when it comes to the milchiks, they're being more sensitive. Um, Not fully sure. He has some explanations in the notes, but yeah, it's a yesh oimrim. It's a yes oisrim. But the pashtus we have here this mahalach that the chumrah is because of a lingering taste and being cooked in the same equipment would not necessarily, certainly just baked in the same oven, would not give it such a strong taste to have to worry about a lingering taste. Let's move on. So a money issue. So here is the following scenario. So Reuven is making an event on Sunday afternoon, and he needs to have a singer. On Friday morning, he sees he sees someone he meets someone who is a shtickle singer. He says, "Would you be available on Sunday afternoon to entertain at this event?" "Yeah, I could make it." "How much would you charge?" So he says, $200. "Okay, good. A deal." Whatever the words were, I wasn't there. Yeah. Then Shimon, the singer, goes out, and an hour later, he's just walking and he's thinking, the amount of issues he's going to reshuffle, etc., etc. I don't know why his husband was. He says for $200 is not worth it. And so he called up Reuven and he says, for $200 I can't do that. It's not that doesn't that's not no, that doesn't work. So Reuven says, so how much would be worth it for you? She says, $300. Let me get back to you. Friday afternoon, Reuven and Shimon meet in the grocery store, and Reuven says, you got the job. Okay. So Sunday afternoon, Shimon turns up, does his bit, and then afterwards, Reuven gives him $300. And he says, but however, the fact that you changed your price was not erlach. That wasn't that wasn't an honorable thing to do. So now Shimon was the one who's contacted me. I gave a price and I realized I made a mistake. Am I not allowed to I'm not allowed to correct that mistake? That's basically his question. Is that dishonest to correct that mistake? So there is a concept of mechusar amon. If a person had, so we have on the screen, you have, it's based upon a story in the Gemara about someone was in the middle of davening and he was approached by a buyer who knew that he had an animal to sell, and the buyer offered him 100 zuz. And he didn't respond because he was in the middle of davening. But the buyer didn't realize that. So he thought he's just not interested in such a low offer. So he upped his offer to 200 zuz, 500 zuz. At the end, he finished davening and he says, oh, I'm happy to sell it to you. I'm going to sell it for 100 zuz. When you gave that first offer, I was ready. I had already in my mind agreed in my mind to sell it to you for that price. I'm not going to increase. So they got this idea of doiver emes bilvav. And so there is an idea if you've given a price, so you shouldn't be upping the price. If you were ready for that price, so you shouldn't. Then there's that concept called mechuser amona. So you can't be forced in a bezdin to keep to the original price, but there is a mechuser amona that you've given your word, etc. I spoke about this on Friday night, and someone came over to me and says, in the business world, there's when there's this negotiation, and then in the Hamisha world, there's a mazel bracha. Once you've said mazel bracha and you shake hands, whatever it may be, you don't go back. It's totally unacceptable to go back, whatever it may be, whatever mistakes you may have made. You keep your word regardless. Well, that's in business. That's certainly the prerogative of the business community. But let's now look at the other side of the way I'm looking at this. There is a concept called oinoah. So if I sold a product and I sold it I sold you a product, and I made a mistake in the price. I sold you a product. I thought it was worth $200, and it turns out it's worth $300. So then there's a concept called Ainor, and we can I can claim to cancel the wholesale and refund you, or there's a whole thing. If it's a difference, if it's a smaller difference, if it's a difference of up to 1/6, then okay. But if it's more than that, then I have the right, even after the fact, even after I've sold, even after you've taken the goods, to say that I undercharged you. And the same thing is not only when it comes to sales, but you have here also in Hilchos Noah, also a Noah B'schiris. When it comes to a rental or a salary, if it's something which should have been paid according to the standard price, should be paid so much more and you paid less, there is an issue of Noah here. So therefore, I felt if that's the case, then the Shimon has the right to tell, certainly before the event, to tell Reuven that that price is not enough. Although you could argue that it may be more subjective than objective, and therefore there is a question of a chusar amon. I'm not sure. These were my thoughts, to say that and also I don't know whether when he gives a price and an hour later he comes back and says whether that's considered he gave a final price and is going back on it. I'm not sure. Not so easy. Okay, let's go on. The following question, someone saying that Rambam says eating bosa b'cholov is osum in Torah. That's certainly talking about bosa b'cholov, which is cooked together. It says 3 times imoy. One is to say isur bishul, one is isur achila, one is isur hanoah. But certainly eating a slice of meat and a slice of cheese, chewing them together is definitely also not awesome in a Torah. Okay, so here I was very impressed with the Shaila, that's why I wanted to share it with you. And it is the following, that in in one place in town, they are making a special Havdalah event, and a few of the Madrichos want to get there in time. So the head Madricha, well, it was going to drive from one area to where the area where the event's going to take place. And the other Madrichas are asking, in order to be able to leave, the minute Shabbos goes out, are they allowed to walk on Shabbos from their homes, let's say 20 minutes, to walk over to the place where the senior Madricha has her car, and then it's obvious, why did they come here? They came on Shabbos to be able to get into a car after Shabbos. That is the question. So I was very impressed with the question. And this is actually discussed in the Gemara and brought in Shulchan Aruch. You can see this on the screen. You have machshichin al tchum or ein also lahachshich al tchum. So the scenario here is that the tchum is the edge of town, 2,000 amas out of town. And if you wanted to get on a journey right after Shabbos, so you're not allowed to go to the edge of the tchum to be able to move right after Shabbos, because it's obvious, it's Nikar Hadover, that you're preparing on Shabbos to go further. So in the contemporaries form, they give a equivalent idea to go on Shabbos to the bus stop, to be able to pick up the bus right after Shabbos. Don't ask me how they're going to pay for the ticket. I don't know. But this idea of gearing up on Shabbos to be able to do a melacha right after Shabbos is problematic. Yeah. The redeeming factor, though, is that it says here and further in Shulchan Aruch that if it's l'tzoyrich mitzvah, then you are allowed to, because it says the pasuk in Yeshaya that you should avoid mitzoy cheftzecha. You should not be pursuing your interests, your needs, your desires on Shabbos. And there's a famous diuk, cheftzecha, chafotzecha asurim, cheftze shomayim mutarim. If it's your personal needs, then you should not be pursuing them on Shabbos. If it's Chefetz Shamayim, if it's for Avodas Hashem, then you are allowed to pursue that. So therefore, since they want to um, go to be able to help with this Havdalah event with the Cheder kids, etc., so it's Chefetz Shamayim, then it would be permitted. I know of a particular rabbi he used to fly back to Eretz Yisrael on Motzei Shabbos, and in summer he would walk from his wherever he lived to the airport, and he would catch his flight on Motzei Shabbos. Possibly that was Chefetz Shamayim to be able to. I don't know. Could be that was his heter. Okay, um, let's move on. So now someone asks me, and he actually was negay for him lemaisa. He sells stuff on Amazon, and in Amazon there's two efanim. There's one efan that Amazon have a stock of your goods, and they'll deliver the order from them, or there's Amazon will kind of make a shidduch, and you will deliver the merchant will deliver the goods. So with a merchant delivering the goods, no, it's easier. Then you receive an order on Shabbos. If the website Amazon is open on Shabbos, you receive an order. Okay, after Shabbos you'll fulfill the order. That's okay. But what happens if he would do Amazon that Amazon deliver? So he's going to put a stock of his stuff in Amazon warehouse, and then comes the order, and on Shabbos there can be an order and a payment and a delivery all happening on Shabbos, and it's all his stuff. So this is his question. Is that allowed? Is it not allowed? So before Amazon, before internet was invented, there was something called a vending machine, and where you put in so many pennies, and you get a bar of chocolate comes out, or a can, or whatever it may be. So this was already discussed before the war in Hungary. There was Rav Shimon Greenfeld, Marshag, and he talks about this. If a Jew owns vending machines in the train stations, he's got a vending machine, sells cigarettes, sells chocolate. Does he have to disable those machines for Shabbos, or can they stay in function on Shabbos? His basic take was that it is allowed, and he says you don't care whether they buy the cigarettes on Shabbos or before Shabbos or after Shabbos. You got it there, and they've chosen when to buy it. So then it's you're not generating directly that there should be a buying and selling on Shabbos. And I don't see any significant difference between that case of the vending machine and you got stuff sitting in Amazon. There it's a payment, here it's a payment, there it's a delivery. What's the difference? Delivery over there, he gets a packet of cigarettes out of your machine, or he gets it out of Amazon. I don't see. Because there's people doing it. I didn't tell Amazon when to deliver. I didn't tell them to employ people on Shabbos. I've put my stuff. Let's say if I have a guy who's selling stuff for me, and I don't tell him when to sell. He goes and he decides to go selling on Shabbos rather than on Friday or on Sunday. He chooses to go traveling on Shabbos. That's okay. I didn't employ him. Where it would be much more problematic, which I've had this a few times, where you got a service industry. So let's say I service computers, and let's say, and which means if someone has a breakdown in their computers, I have to send in a technician to fix it up. And I've got Goyish technicians, and I want to employ them that they should also be available on Shabbos. So if an emergency comes in, so they have to go out on Shabbos. I don't see a heter for them because they're attacker. They're working for me in their contract. They have to be available on Shabbos. That's not okay. But here I've never made any stipulation about Shabbos. They should be available, shouldn't be available. So let's just read what he has over here. This is a safer, a cute name. The word for website in Hebrew is atar, like the word Astra Kadisha. Yeah, but the website's not the Astra Kadisha, but okay. So it's called Derech HaAsorim. Yeah, this is the name of it's a two-volume set, all about technology, websites, etc., about Shabbos and other areas of halacha. So if he writes the following: someone who owns a website, some say he should close the site before Shabbos if there's a concern that Yidden will enter the site on Shabbos. If it's not possible to close the site, then you should sell it to a goy for Shabbos. And he gives us has a here recommended stamach here. Omnom nire. If most of your customers are goyim, then you are allowed to leave your site open on Shabbos. And in his notes, he goes through the various inyonim of why it's not a problem of mechira, and I think that's adequate. Um, yeah. That's in addition to this complication, there's that let's say a Jewish website, but not for business, but for information, for chinuch, and you say have to close it for Shabbos, but it's serving all different time zones. Which time zone does it have to be off for? It's like, um, yeah, okay. What's our last thing is about using silk for the lining of a talus and for the corners of the talus. So the reason why we have this extra corners on the corner of the talus is really to reinforce it. In this itself, there are different minhagim. Some have the corners on the outside of the talus. You see in some communities, and even they're going to have a little bit of an embroidery with some text on the corner with a brocha perhaps. And then we have what we're more accustomed is that in the Hamish world generally the corners on the inside, but that's really to reinforce. Otherwise, the tzitzis possibly would pull through the woolen fabric. So, so some people are particular that it should be made with silk, but tals cotton and tals godel. And so, what's the reason for this? I think I did discuss this a while back about the lining, and so that I heard from Rabbi Levi Garelik, a colleague of mine, that there's the idea that it should keep on slipping, and you have to keep on getting it right. Like the tefillin, you shouldn't forget about your tefillin, so your talus should keep on slipping, so that you have to remember that you're wearing a talus. Interesting, but so what you see here on the screen is that by the Rebbe, by the Rabbeim, in this letter, the Rebbe actually quotes the Rebbe Rashab had silken corners, and how he tucked in the silken corner of his talus, of his talus cotton, I believe, he had a piece of linen, a piece of silk from the cloths from of the Alter Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek. So it looks like this was going back for generations of having silken. Now, and he says it's got to do with Zekeli Van Veil. You're talking about fabric, which is going to enhance the talus. So silk is more expensive, more beautiful than cotton, etc. So it looks like for Zekeli Van Veil. There was another cheshbon, but this I got confused about on why we wear silk on Shabbos. So during the week, how many of our garments are made of wool, which is Tzoimeach Shebachai. On Shabbos, which is a higher madrega, so we use silk, which is Chai Shebachai. That's why there's the Indian of having a silk Bekeshe, silk kapota. I heard once from the Revelation Malando Shalom is commenting about these artificial silks. So he says instead of going from Tzemeach to Chai, you get if it's artificial, it's a minerals, it's diamond. So you're going from Chai, you're going from Tzemeach, going down to diamond. Right. Someone's asking, would there be a difference where someone can block according to the same time zone, whoever is browsing their site? Possibly. Listen, if someone is in this parsha, get guidance individually. But Bichlolus, I've shown you that the general mahalach is that if most of your customers are goyim, it's not a question of misleading anyone, and therefore you're allowed to leave it open and look at it like a. And if you do, well, if you are doing the deliveries, it's a post box, like you can get messages, etc. So that's not a problem. Um, the more concern is if the delivery, if the purchase and the delivery is happening through Amazon on Shabbos. But even then, we've said that since you're not choosing it that way, it's like the vending machine in the station, and that's okay. All right, I'm going to stop with that and wish you all a good Woch, and we should have a sort of Tevis, Beshu Hashem, as Shiva Sion, and we'll wake up and we'll see the Geula, Zechzenu, Inenu, Beshuchol, Etzim, Berachim.
Amen.
Amen.
שכח, יתברך.
Very nice.